everyone, and welcome to the round 18 edition of Bombercast for 2022. I am your regular co-host, The Grizz, here today with a new guest host, with Bonta still out of commission for the next couple of weeks. I have fellow mod and podcast extraordinaire, Beerfish. How are you, Beery?
Hello, The Grizz. I'm fine, thank you. Doing well after another win, another week, another win.
Yeah, it is nice. So it was tough going for Bonta and I at the start of the year with all the losses, but it's good to get some wins on the board, even if it was a bit of a weird game, which we'll jump straight into. The 48 points was the margin. I felt like it was sort of more than that for the majority of the game, with the exception of sort of the last half of the first quarter. Gold Coast didn't really fire a shot, so it's sort of hard to gauge this game and what it meant for us. It was very similar to the Brisbane game last week, where there just was no pressure or no heat on the way we moved the ball. And, at least Brisbane had 9 guys out to justify why they were so poor in that regards. But the Gold Coast were just flat. Like, it's a weird performance by them. But all in all, a pretty good performance. Our forward line was pretty functional. Peter Wright only kicked 2, but we managed to kick a score of 100 regardless. It's a pretty free-flowing affair, but, you'd always take a 48-point win over nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always fun to watch that kind of footy when it's going on and coming off appropriately, but it doesn't really tell you a lot about the team when the opposition's like that. Like I said, good to watch, but not necessarily tells us too much.
Yeah, I think the ball movement was really slick. We got back into a sort of game where we had a lot of high possession winners. McGrath and Redmond and Merritt all got 30 plus. Still and Shield had another sort of really good game out of the centre of the field. I think he had another sort of 3 centre clearances for the game and 14 contested possessions. But I think what stood out for me was the forward line. Like I said, Peter Wright only kicked 2, and normally if we kick 100 points, he's bagging 4 or 5, but I think he only bagged the 2. Yet we had 4 from Stringer, we had 2 from Draper, Jones, and Martin. Had a couple chip in like Phillips and Durham to kick goals, and I just think the forward line looks so much better in terms of structure. With you got your right, then you got Jones, Stringer as the third mobile type, and a resting ruck every now and then if you need the rotation. But I just thought Stringer's return to form was good. He takes a 3 to 4 week lead up whenever he's out for a significant period of time, with that being maybe just a couple of weeks. He always needs that few weeks lead up, but he seems to be now in form. 4 goals, 16 disposals, everything he touched seems to turn to gold. And when he's up and firing, our forward line looks absolutely mint.
Yeah, you're not wrong. He always does take a few weeks to get back into the swing of things after he's been out for a while. But you certainly never begrudge him taking those pings at goal from anywhere in the 50, really. I certainly don't. I think he gets more than he misses, and that's what we want to see. So you got to give him that license.
Yeah, and I think it helps him and guys like Matt Guelphy, who have sort of been battling at different points this year, when you have your full complement of forwards. Players like Matt Guelphy, who have sort of played a lot of this year as sort of having to be an attacking crumbing player, which just isn't their role. Now they're the 4th or 5th, the forward, 5th if Langford's rolling down there from the wing. And, he can just do what he does best, which is act like a total sociopath when the ball's in his area and just tackle guys. I think he had 10 tackles on the weekend, which is a bonkers number for a guy that's meant to be playing on the half-forward flank. Guys like Ben Hobbs had 6 tackles. So our forward lines are applying heat, which is probably helping turn the ball over in more attacking areas as opposed to isolating our defenders 1v1, who I think still did a good job. I think, guys like Chol and Casbolt and Day had been recent touch, and they snagged a couple each, but they didn't really look like they troubled Laverty and Zerk Thatcher at different times. And
yeah, that's right. I mean, I was at the Dreamtime at Optus last year over here in Perth, and I remember maybe a Chol just tearing us a new one. We seemed to be kicking it to him on purpose. Like, he was just everywhere. So I was certainly watching for him, and he was shut down pretty handsomely. Just got the couple, as you said, 1 or 2. But always great to see the handball of Rosie go off and work. Probably when you don't have as much pressure on you, that's the way it's meant to go. But we don't always see it going that way.
Yeah, and I suppose, part of me feels like there's a little bit of deja vu happening, in the sense that we've sort of seen this before, haven't we, with this sort of ring rosy handball game that gets us in front when it works, but it can be absolutely brutal when it doesn't the other way. And There were times we probably isolated Zerk, Thatcher and Laverty a little too often. And like I said, they did much better than you'd think in that situation. But against a team that's not as deplorable as Gold Coast were on the weekend, we probably would have been crucified going back the other way if we played like that against, say, Melbourne or Geelong. And I think there's aspects of the game which are coming together. I think Heppel's move to the wing has really helped. We're not having a small like Rankin, or I don't think Roses played on the weekend. But another one of those small, Rory Atkins at different times, sort of sneaking forward and getting goal side of our defenders and beating us out the back, which we're sort of having with Heppel and Cutler as our defenders. And Sam Durham's been a revelation, sort of as Kmart Angus Brayshaw, a guy who starts on the wing and flows back into defensive 50 to help aerially. And you just see, even just roles in a team like Caldwell, who did a really good job on, took Miller for the first 3 quarters, kept him to 16 disposals in the first 3 quarters. Miller filled his boots in the last when the game was all but dead. But, that's 2 pretty good scalps by Caldwell in successive weeks. He did a job on Neil last week, and when the game was there to be won, he tied down, took Miller really well. And I think that turned him into a far more valuable product as a footballer when you can get 20 and kick a goal for offensively, but you can shut down the opposition's best mid defensively. Your midfield starts to look a lot more balanced. And, the trade parish camp will be getting louder and louder every week that Caldwell and Shield and Merritt have really good games with Parish out, but it just looks like a midfield's working harder defensively, which helps you balance all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I asked the question in the Parish thread today. I don't really have any skin either way, but just, do we trade him? What are the arguments for trading him and not trading him? And I can see it from both sides. So I don't really know what we end up doing. I imagine we hang on to him unless, as somebody else said on the board today, some Godfather offer comes in. But that's probably more likely to happen next year when I think he reaches restricted free agency.
Yeah. So I think there's the pre-agent element of, guys who are about to hit free agency next year generally get big contract offers that come early. But there's a couple of issues with us. For starters, we're $2 million under the cap. So we need to spend $1.3 million just to get to the salary floor, which we have to do for next year. You trade away Darcy Parish at $700K, all of a sudden we're 2.5 mil underneath the salary cap. I don't think we can sign enough players to make up that difference. But more,
what's Jared Pollock doing?
Yeah, that's it. Do we just want to front end Zach Merritt's massive deal so he's earning $2 million next year and earning like $200K for the rest of his contract? Like maybe we should just do that. But I don't know. I imagine, like you said, it'll be it would have to take a Godfather offer, not just in trade, but in contract to lure him out of Essendon, because I think he's pretty happy. He's got the podcast with Pidge, but I think that it's more likely the teams come knocking next year when they can potentially get him for free as a free agent, as opposed to coughing up what will likely be 2 first-round picks this year to get him.
Yeah, it's a fair call.
I wanted to ask you, stop me if you've heard this before, right? We have a really slow start to the year before something happens mid-season, name it a review mid this year. We sacked Mark Neeld in 2018 about them by. Guy McKenna leaves in 2019 for Cricket Victoria. Then inexplicably, we find form and win the majority of the back end of games, and we feel pretty good about ourselves. And the game is nice to look at, but not necessarily defensively sound. Am I right in feeling this is just a bit of deja vu?
It's deja vu all over again.
Yeah. I don't know how this keeps happening. I don't know where the complacency comes from, because it's almost a completely different group, say, from 2017. When you look at the teams, they're almost completely different. Guys like, Stringer and Hooker and Danaher and Fantasia and McKenna. You look at the list and it's very, very different. A lot of younger players, but I don't know what happened over the summer, whether the defensive plan was that bad that it just didn't work, whether we tried to add too many layers at once. We've sort of reverted to this thing that we know works, which is this run and gun game style, but probably doesn't result in any sort of serious contention down the track.
No, I mean, it's eerily similar, and nothing tells the story like my spirit. You start out the season thinking, okay, I mean, most people kind of thought that we wouldn't go too well this season. We certainly wouldn't go as well as we went last season, and then couldn't have predicted the injuries that we were going to sustain. That coupled with the game plan, they're being ready to take the game plan to the next level, and then all of a sudden you lose Langford in the first 5 minutes, and it's just like a pack of cards from there. So it spends the first half of the season destroying your spirit, and then just when you think, okay, well, at least we'll get some decent draft picks, they start winning. And you're like, oh, well, where's this been? I mean, I'm enjoying this, but where does it get us?
Yeah, like I think it's so. I did this exercise on the weekend when after the game, thinking I wonder what's interesting to look at. So we're missing 3 of our 4. Like for the first half of the year, we were missing 3 of our 5 top finishes in the best and fairest last year. We were missing Stringer, Snelling, and Langford for a significant period of time. We're also missing 4 of our 5 leading goal kickers in Hooker, who retired, McDonald Tippingwoody, who didn't sort of kick a ball in anger before retiring this year. Jones was out, and Stringer was out until round 6 before he injured himself and came back. So
they're big outs.
Yeah, they're big outs. But then you look at our start to the season, right? So here's where who we played and where they are on the ladder now, right? So Geelong first, Brisbane third, Melbourne second, Adelaide 16th, who we beat, Fremantle 4th, Collingwood 5th, who currently 5th. Who was it after that? I think it was Hawthorn, who we beat, then Sydney, who are 6th, who beat us, and then the Bulldogs, who are reigning premiers from last year, reigning grand finalists from last year, sorry. So you look at the draw, and that's absolutely bonkers. 7 of the top 8 teams currently, and a grand finalist from last year. And, so when you have those players out and that starts of the year, it makes sort of sense that we started so slow. Like, it doesn't justify the lack of effort in games like the Geelong game and the Sydney game. Like, they were just deplorably sort of insipid the way we played. But, it makes sense that we started the game slow. But I don't know. Have we wasted this year, Beery?
There were definitely games that were an absolute clusterfuck. There's no doubt about it. And they really break your heart watching those games because, I don't want to be there. They don't want to be there. Nobody wants to be there except the opposition, maybe. But have we wasted the year? I think yes and no. Yes, it's a waste in the sense that it's another season gone where we haven't really gone anywhere. But no, in the sense that gains have been made in some areas, I'm sure. And if we can just keep I know it's, every club's got injuries, of course, but if we can just keep the majority of our best 22 on the ground for more than half a season next year, I think we'll see significant improvement.
Yeah, I'm torn on this. I think wasted is a bit strong. Like, it's not wasted in the sense that we got games into guys like Martin and D'Ambrosio, and Jones is now playing a lot of games. We got games into Brian Draper's found some form back, kicked the goal of the year on the weekend. I don't think I've cheered as loud on my couch as when I watched that goal. My dogs jumped up. They thought I was screaming to death or something, but it was just, what a goal, mate. We could probably spend 10 minutes for that, but we don't have the time. But, Zerk Thatcher's starting to mature, getting games into Jai Caldwell. Like, people forget he's played less than 20 games coming into this year. Finding guys like D'Ambrosio and Nick Martin, who might well win the Crichton this year, the way he's going, like, that's not a waste. But there's still this pit feeling in my stomach of, if we hadn't had the injuries, like, we may not have beaten Geelong, Brisbane, Melbourne, Fremantle, right? But we might have been able to snare one. And I think you're right in that our spirit was broken after that first 6 weeks, and I don't think we ever recovered. And if we can get a bit of better form in that early part of the year, maybe we are, in Gold Coast position to game out of the top 8. It's not a waste, but I don't think it's been a success either.
And then someone like Gold Coast comes along and completely destroys our chances.
Yeah, that's probably. Yeah, if we were in the hunt for finals, Gold Coast win on the weekend. That's as sure as anything. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there's been a bit of a waste in the sense that if we'd played this way all season, then we might have been a bit more successful. But there's also the question we talked about before in the sense of, is this game plan sustainable? So we tried to implement a new game plan at the start of the year and it didn't work. So we've gone back to the old one. So was that a waste of the first half of the year trying a brand new game plan that we're not going to use?
Probably with the players that we had, I'd say possibly a waste.
Yeah.
But, I still haven't seen the game plan really. Well, I haven't seen it working. I've seen it not working.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful to see it working full steam ahead next year. We have a great preseason. Nobody gets injured. We don't get talked up too much. We get a slightly easier draw because we have one of the hardest ones this year, and it all comes together and we win the flag.
Win the flag. I think. Well, look, if
I'm getting older, I'm running out of time. They've got to get moving.
Okay, sorry, mate. But yeah, I think we've got, like I said, we've got a lot of room in the salary cap. Josh Marnie's already said we're going to be pretty aggressive with free agency and targeting out of contract players. So maybe we pick up a. I think Angus Brayshaw is probably out of the question. I think he either stays in Melbourne or goes to Fremantle. But someone like that, to use that cap space to target people. Maybe we do what Fremantle did last year with Brody and pick up an extra draft pick and a handy player and use the cap space as sort of like an NBA style salary dump. But it's interesting. So we'll now move to one segment I like to play with our guest hosts called Take It or Leave It. And just on the topic we were touching on before, my question to you, Beery, winning is counterproductive at this point. Should we tank? Take it or leave it?
Well, I think we should never tank. Tanking is bad. Draft picks are good, but when legitimately won. So I don't want to see them tanking, but I won't be that cut up. So I guess I'll leave it on the basis of that. I don't think we should be tanking, but I wouldn't be cut up if we ended up near the bottom. I don't want a wooden spoon, though. I'm not a Carlton supporter.
Yeah. It's interesting because I was looking at EDPS's, who, for anyone wondering, is the preeminent draft expert on BigFooty. I was looking at his rankings, and there seems to be a top three but one of those top three is father-son linked. So if you want to get one of the best three players in the draft, you're going to have to basically finish bottom two, which I think is out of the question for us. And then from four,
damn it,
yeah, but players 4 through 8 in the draft sort of seem pick your poison. So, and if you look at historical drafts, I won't go into it because I don't want to bore everyone, but the range of player you get from 4 through 8 really varies. And different years, 8's better than 4. 5 is best out of a lot of them. 6 is it doesn't make sense. So they're all very similar quality of players, particularly in this draft where it's a top 3 and then the rest. And so, because we're not going to finish bottom 2, I think just win as many games as we can, get some good vibes going into off season and see how we go
before the injuries kick in.
Yeah, of course, that's for sure.
Yeah. All right. Can I ask you one?
Go for it.
Is Peter Wright in the AA 40 at the moment?
40 potentially, definitely not in the 22. I think he's equal 4th or 5th for goals this season. There's obviously Charlie Curnow and Hawkins and Cameron are the leading goal kickers at the moment. Then it's Max King, Peter Wright, and Aaron Norton all sort of locked on 42 goals. I think Norton and King are both, are higher up in the league for contested marks, and they play for teams that have gone better this year than us. So I think they're probably more likely to get in the squad. But, who knows? He could kick 15 over the next 5 games, finish, 2nd or 3rd on the Coleman table, and we're, asking a completely different question. At the moment, I'll leave it, but there's scope. From me to you, is Mason Redman our best and fairest winner right now?
I'm terrible at these. It's like picking a horse race. He's certainly in the conversation, that's for sure. So top 5, would Nick Martin still be in there? Would he be? Who would be the main competition?
He'd be my favourite at this point, I reckon.
Well, he's had a couple of quiet weeks, hasn't he, for him? Or am I judging them all by his 5-goal debut?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, he's the sort of guy, when you look at his stats, he averages 20, averages a goal a game, he's the sort of guy that will pick up, a few votes
every game.
Match. Yeah, as opposed to, your Jake Stringer out of the box or Peter Wright kicking 6. So I think, if I gave you the 4 to pick from of Laverty, Redman, Wright, and Martin, who I think is our top 4, maybe Merritt if you want to include for a quintet, who are you going with?
Has Zach missed any games this year?
I think he missed a couple with that ankle that we all thought was going to be like an 8-weeker.
That's right. Nah, I'll go with Nick Martin, the hometown boy.
Nick Crichton.
Yeah. I love Red Dog, but I'm going to leave it.
There must be some extra satisfaction as a WA man to see Nick Martin come to us, not the Eagles, huh?
Oh, absolutely.
Did you have one for me?
I've got one last one for you. It's based on something I was talking about on the board somewhere today. Might not have been our board. I think it was with Owen 87. Oiling up the arms, Grizz. Should that be banned? Is it like having a glove? Is it that kind of ballpark? The only reason you could possibly be oiling up the arms is to make yourself harder to tackle. So
This is an interesting one. So I think it's different from the glove. So the glove gives you an unfair advantage, I think, in terms of your ability to mark. And so it sort of enhances your ability. Whereas I think the oil, although, you could say the oil makes it harder to tackle. So that's an unfair advantage. But I think you're more asking in regards to sort of the head-high tackles that are happening because guys are shrugging it up. I'm going to leave it just because that's not what the oil's there for. I don't think the oil's there to help guys shrug the tackle up. I think it's just there to make people sort of harder to tackle. Like if you're going to ban the oil on the arms, you got to ban grippo, for example, on the hands. So
do you?
Well, I feel like this.
I'm asking the question here, not
Sorry,
you.
yeah, apologies. Yeah, so I'll make the statement. If you're going to sort of ban the oil on the arms, you got to ban grippo as well. And I don't think you should ban grippo, but I don't think so. I think there's a greater argument to have, though, about the head-high tackles. I've always held the opinion that if you have the opportunity to dispose the ball but choose to duck or shrug up or whatever, it's prior opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's the easiest way to deal with it because if it's not enough just to get a ball up because they're like, all right, all set up for a contest and most teams are set up to do that regardless. If you lose the footy because of it, you're going to stop players from doing it. So if you're going to get smacked around the chops and lose the footy, guys will stop doing it very quickly. I don't equate Jack Ginnivan, for example, to Joel Selwood. I think Joel Selwood, I think Dog made the point that Joel Selwood shrugs up to evade, it hits him high, but he keeps going. Whereas, Jack Ginnivan sort of flops down, throws his arm up, and then sort of looks at the umpire waiting for the free kick and doesn't play through contact. So,
like Corey Waitman.
Yeah, Cody Waitman. Oh, don't get me started on Cody Waitman.
Corey, whatever his name
is.
Yeah,
he's
blonde mock guy.
Yeah, look, it's not worth learning his name because, he's not a very likable guy. And
is it Ginnivan or Ginnivan?
I don't even know. The blonde hair guy that Kane Corns wishes he was. But
so has this happened just in time for this weekend?
I think so. Which could be good for us, but yeah, I'm going to leave it. Short answer, I'm going to leave it because I think the oil on the arms is something that it's not there for the shrugging up. And I think every team does it. So that whereas the Ginnivan thing, which is a shove up, and the Waitman thing, only a few players are doing it, but more and more players are doing it. So I think the AFL should probably do something more assertive than, we just won't pay them. I actually think there needs to be a stronger point of it. It actually counts as prior opportunity because instead of getting rid of the footy, you've chosen to take that action.
That's fair.
So I think we'll quickly get into a Collingwood preview. So, Beer, if I told you, or if someone told me probably more accurately, that Collingwood would be coming into this match at round 19, coming off an 8-win streak and fifth on the ladder, I would have taken all your money and given you whatever odds you wanted. But alas, we find ourselves here. A team that plays very similar to us, I think. They have an undersized backline. They have a lot of mid-types like Howe and Jack Crisp and Nathan Murphy, who are sort of those 190-centimetre intercept types, not unlike we have. And they sort of rely on their contested ball work to get them in a good position to pick the ball off at halfway like we try and do. But they're just much better at it this season, obviously. What are your expectations coming into this match?
A win.
A win.
I actually did not know that they were fifth on the ladder and that they've won 8 in a row. Is that for real?
Yeah, no, they're on fire. It's actually quite ridiculous.
Great.
Yeah, and they've got some guy called Nick Dacos who apparently is really good.
Yeah.
You don't hear much about. Yeah, you don't hear much about him in the media. Like he's a bit of a quiet achiever. No one ever talks about him, but
right.
Yeah. So Nick Dacos, I think it is. Dacos. I can't say his last name.
Nick Dacos.
Sure. Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Nico Dacos. They're apparently pretty good. But they're 8 straight, they're fifth on the ladder. I think they're only percentage out of top 4 at the moment. The percentage is pretty poor, but they'll be looking at us as easy kill, I think. Quite right.
I'm looking at them as the loss that they probably need to have then. Sure. This is the classic Essendon gets up and win game. Surely.
Yeah, Geelong in 2010, that epic.
Oh, what a game.
Yeah, so I think I agree. I think Collingwood might be up for the picking here, but I think their midfield's very strong. I think our backline matches up on their forward line pretty well. all it takes though is Mason Cox to have his one good game out of 40, and we're cooked. But let's hope that doesn't happen.
That never happens to us.
Yeah, no, of course not. Mark Legras didn't kick 10. But so I think Collingwood are probably going to be my tip, although every team I've tipped since St Kilda in closest to the pin has gone, the results gone the other way. So maybe I should just tip us for the rest of the season and see if we make the finals.
Yeah, well, I stopped tipping about round 6, I think. So, obviously I hope we win. I won't be surprised either way. What I'm not going to cop is like a 10-goal drubbing or something like that.
I agree.
So it'll be interesting to see the team sheets and how they end up lining up.
It will be important, I think, because we've played sort of 4 games in a row, really, if we include the West Coast game, which was an up and down affair and neither team defended particularly well. Our last sort of 4 weeks, it's been St Kilda, very little pressure by them. West Coast, very little pressure by them. Sydney was a hotly contested game, but then it was Brisbane and Gold Coast who were as hot as Melbourne winter. But I think Collingwood will bring the heat. It'll be interesting to see how our handball and our link-up game off halfback works against a team which is much better structurally and going to bring a lot more heat.
Yeah, exactly, around the ball, around the contest, and just see whether they can get that ball out of there. But with the way Shield's been playing lately, I don't know where that's come from. Well, of course, Parrish isn't playing.
Yeah, no, of course.
That's the consensus. Won't revisit that well-trodden ground.
Yeah, that's a discussion for another podcast. I think that just about wraps us up. So, what's your tip for the weekend, Beery?
We win by 13 points.
No, I'm tipping Collingwood by 25, but just like I said, because every team I've seen to tip since the bye, it goes the other way. So I'm hoping I've jinxed Collingwood by doing that.
I think we've got both bases covered.
Good. I think that might do us all for tonight. Thanks, Beery, for jumping on. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thanks for having me, and I look forward to editing us in the next 10 minutes.
No worries. Once again, thanks, guys, for listening. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, and we'll talk to you all next week.